Hello again, fight fans. Welcome to episode number 237 of the Neutral Corner Boxing Podcast. I am your host, Michael Montero for Ring Magazine, ringtv.com, and the Ring Digital YouTube channel, where you are watching me live right now. You can listen live also on Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, all of them, all around the world. So we got a loaded show for you guys today, man. It feels really, really good. We've got tons of stuff to preview, and I feel like it's been forever since I had a huge preview like this. We have a big boxing weekend coming up, specifically this Saturday, September 26th. So no guest on today's show because I want to do a really, really detailed preview of the big pay-per-view show, but that's not the only card we got going on this Saturday, right? And then also I wanted to look at the fall schedule because it's really coming together. I think, look, COVID, I've talked about this on other shows. COVID really hit boxing hard because fighters, the big name fighters that make the big salaries, the guys that are pulling in 7, 8 figures, they need fans in the stands. So it's delayed a lot of the big matchups that we were expecting this year. But we've got some pretty good stuff to look forward to this fall. And it really kicks off this weekend. So I'll talk about that a little bit. We'll do a little review of what we saw last weekend. You know, a lot of people shit all over the cards last weekend and said they were terrible. I didn't think they were terrible, particularly the PBC show on Showtime. I thought it was a pretty solid card. It wasn't great, but it was pretty solid, man. So anyway, before I get started with that, guys, phone lines are open. If you want to get on the line, call in. You guys know the numbers, 213-267-7787 in the USA. In the UK, it's 02081-036-051. As always, I remind you, please make sure you smash that thumbs up button if you're watching here on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the Ring Digital and you click the notification bells. Make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Montero on Boxing. And make sure that you're subscribed to all of the audio platforms that this show is on, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and all the rest. There's a million of them. Okay, so let's see. We got a few of you guys here in the chat. Pietro's on. What's up, Pietro? I'm rocking your shirt right now. The one of your Arturo Gatti shirts. Awesome, brother. Awesome stuff. Guys, you should check out PS Shirts. He does some awesome work. Okay, so this is TNC 237 for the week of September 26th. Let's get right into these news and notes, man. Showbox will return from COVID. Charles Conwell going up against, guest to the show recently, right? Charles Conwell going up against Wendy Toussaint, 154 pounds. Prospects, I'm real high on Charles Conwell, and that's going to be October 7th. So it's going to be the return to Showbox from COVID, right? I think the last card was either February. It might have been March. So it's been at least 6 months since we've seen Showbox, and it's one of those developmental series that's so important, so vital to boxing. So it's awesome to have that back. Also, Lomachenko Lopez, that's going to be October 17th. You know, we talked about that before. But the undercard starting to come together. Alex Saucedo going up against Arnold Barboza Jr. That's a pretty good co-feature. All right, and Clay Collard's going to be on against the Can. A couple other guys are going to be on against Cans. I'm not necessarily interested in those fights. I mean, you know, I'll check them out, of course. But I like Saucedo Barboza. So Barboza is 24-0 out of Los Angeles. Saucedo 30-1. He only has that one loss, right? So these are two young, hungry guys, and I think this is going to be an interesting co-feature. Also, we got the rematch between Dillian White and Alexander Povetkin coming up November 21st. That date is confirmed from Matchroom. The site is TBA, but it will be over in the UK somewhere, obviously. Over there, it's going to be Sky Sports pay-per-view. Some people don't love that, but that's what it's going to be. Over here in the USA, it's on DAZN. DAZN needs material badly, so this is a good fight for DAZN. Of course, the first one produced the knockout of the year from Alexander Povetkin. I don't think anything's going to beat that knockout. We actually saw some good knockdowns this weekend, and we've had some good knockdowns throughout the year, but one-punch knockout, that's not going to be beat, man. And I don't think some of you guys don't like this rematch happening so soon because the turnaround, I want to say it's like 11 weeks or something like that. And a few of you have asked me about it and even compared it to when Canelo Alvarez fought Sergey Kovalev. It's very, very different for a multitude of reasons, including career trajectory. Dillian Whyte is much younger and fresher than Sergey Kovalev was. But Sergey Kovalev had been stopped multiple times, and he had been in wars. He had been in brutal, brutal wars. And I want to say he only had like 8 or 9 weeks turnaround for his fight with Canelo Alvarez. And Sergey Kovalev is bigger, Canelo Alvarez moving up in weight. I understand all that. But the previous fight before, Kovalev, when he fought Anthony Yarde, he was almost knocked out, and it wasn't a one-punch type of deal. He was beat up at times in that fight. I can't remember what round it was, but it was pretty much a 10-8 round. I wish I could remember which round it was, but you guys who saw the fight, you know which round I'm talking about, where Kovalev was all but out on his feet. And if he wouldn't have been in such great shape, he was actually in really good shape for that Anthony Yarde fight. He took it very seriously. If he hadn't been in that good of shape, he would have got knocked out right and dead in there. The version of him that fought Edilir Alvarez in the first fight that got knocked out, yeah. If that version had showed up against Anthony Yarde, he wouldn't have escaped that round. And let's see, Davidian Simmons in the chat says 8th round. Yeah, so it's the 8th round of that fight. So he really, really took a brutal, I don't want to say beating, but a lot of punishment in that fight, and he had taken punishment in plenty of other fights, and he had been stopped multiple times going into that fight with Canelo, and he only had an 8-week camp. I think he didn't even get to spar the first, a few weeks of camp. So it was a very, very abbreviated camp. It wasn't a good camp for him. The turnaround was too short. For Dillian Whyte, man, he was winning the fight against Povetkin. And people have 20/20 hindsight, and now everyone's saying, oh, that was an even fight at the time of the stoppage, and I scored the first 2 or 3 rounds for Povetkin. Shut up. Watching that fight live, maybe some of you did give Povetkin the first or second round, but there were two knockdowns. I think in the 4th round was the 5th round where Whyte got clipped. But at that time, going into the 5th round, all of you thought Whyte was in control. Don't give me this shit that it felt like an even fight going into that 5th round. So it's a much different situation. And Whyte got a few weeks off after that one-punch knockout. And he's going to get his full 6, 7, 8-week regular camp for the Povetkin rematch. So call me crazy. I actually tweeted about this, and a lot of you guys out there actually agree with me because you're smart. Whyte should be favored in this rematch. I think he's going to be the favorite, and I think he's going to win. I think he's going to beat Povetkin in the rematch. I don't mind them going right back at it. I think it's smart, and for both of these fighters and for Matchroom, they're staying busy. Why wait until next year? Why do that? The first fight was very good. Now you do the second fight. To make it happen and make it happen so fast, you got to do a pay-per-view. I understand. Some people in the UK don't like that. But when you factor in the American money through DAZN, and then you've got Russian TV money, and other countries are involved as well. DAZN's in so many different markets, and it's on in a bunch of different countries. I think that this will be a profitable show. So I like that they're going right back to the rematch. Speaking of Matchroom, they are getting their DAZN, I should say Matchroom USA. They're getting their DAZN schedule together for the rest of the year. So let's see, late October. Don't have a date yet, an exact date, but it will be late October. You're probably going to get Juan Francisco Estrada versus Carlos Cuadras, the rematch. These guys fought once before. It was a good fight. They're doing a rematch. On that card, you're going to get Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez in the co-feature. What Matchroom is betting on and hoping for is that both Estrada and Chocolatito win, so you get a rematch between those two early next year. I love that because I love when you have cards like this that build to something later on down the line. It gives fans a storyline, and that's something that boxing doesn't do very well these days. It's something that they do much, much better over at the UFC, right? So I like this. I like that this can build to something. Also on that card, Julio Cesar Martinez will defend his flyweight title, I do believe. So November, Matchroom USA is planning 2 different cards. Devin Haney will probably fight, don't shoot the messenger, guys, but probably fight Yoriokas Gamboa. I don't love that fight either, but I think the thinking in the Devin Haney / Matchroom camp is Yoriokas Gamboa, yeah, he got dropped and beat up against Gervonta Tank Davis in Atlanta last year, but he went the distance, right? Or he went very late in that fight. I think, was it a late knockout? I can't even remember, to be honest. I think it was a late knockout. But he went deep into that fight, and he was basically fighting on one leg. So if Haney could go in there and blast him out in 3 or 4 rounds, which I think he probably will, maybe it goes 5 or 6 rounds, he's going to hold that up and say, hey, look, I got rid of this guy in half the time it took Gervonta Davis, right? And he had 2 healthy legs this time. So I think that's the marketing thing that they're going to do there. We all know that really doesn't freaking matter because triangle theories don't work. But casual fans without that sort of nuanced, knowledge, that kind of stuff works on them. It works all the time. And Filip Hrgović, undefeated heavyweight prospect, will probably be in the co-feature. That's probably November 7th. Real quick, super chat pledge from Deed3440. Thank you so much, Deed. Appreciate that. He asked, when is Gennady Golovkin fighting this year? Great freaking question. I do believe the plans are for Gennady to fight in the 4th quarter, which we're almost in anyway, so no shit, right? But likely December, at the very, very end of the year. I know he still has that mandatory, Sergiy, I think is the name, Polish fighter, for his middleweight, the one middleweight title Gennady now has. And he has to take care of that mandatory before he can move forward with other business. I know Gennady and his team still want the 3rd Canelo fight. We know DAZN wants it. We know Golden Boy Promotions wants it. We know Canelo Alvarez doesn't want it. And there's a lot, still to be decided with that whole lawsuit fiasco that was dismissed. And who knows if it'll be reissued or not from Canelo. But so we don't know what the future holds. But we know Gennady wants the big fight. So we know he'd love a 3rd fight with Canelo, maybe possibly move up to 168 and fight a name there. But there's always Ryoto Murata over in Japan. That's an option. But before he can do any of that, he's got the mandatory. And that's who they wanted to fight earlier this year. They actually were trying to fight him as early as like February and March. And I think they were targeting Chicago, actually, to do that fight. But it kept falling through, and then COVID hit. So I don't know, dude. But it should be late this year, probably December, against the Polish fighter. There is a possibility, though, he may not fight this year. And if he doesn't fight this year, I think that's a shame. He's one of the top 5 names in the sport right now. So it is very possible we don't see Canelo or Golovkin this year. It is possible. Canelo, I don't think, is fighting. Who knows? Maybe him and Golden Boy and DAZN will patch things up, and the lawsuit won't be reinstated, and maybe he'll fight at the very end of the year against a guy like, I don't know, Callum Smith. I think it's highly unlikely, but possible. For Golovkin, I still think he'll fight the Polish guy late this year, December-ish, but it is possible, dude. It gets pushed back to January, February. It'd be a shame, but it's very, very possible. Also, back to Matchroom USA. I talked about the November 7th card, late November. I think the weekend after Thanksgiving. They are planning the return of Danny Jacobs, probably against John Ryder. Not a terrible fight. And Demetrius Andrade in the co-feature. So, DAZN, that's through November, right? Now, you just asked about Triple G in the chat. Right now, DAZN doesn't have anything scheduled for December, at least not officially. So I think they're hoping, they're banking on Golovkin getting a fight done. Possibly Canelo, if that could be worked out, but at least Gennady. They want a big name to be on board. Maybe it's Anthony Joshua versus Kubrat Pulev. Those types of fights, those types of names being their December fights to get subscribers back for that month. Right now, they don't have anything in December. So we shall see. Right in the middle of November, November 14th, Terence Crawford versus Kell Brook being targeted. Again, don't shoot the messenger. I don't love this fight, but I'll be honest, I don't necessarily hate it. Kell Brook has lost a couple times, and he's lost pretty badly because he got his face shattered, literally. But he was competitive at times. He was competitive for a round or two against Golovkin, But I thought he was beating Errol Spence halfway through their fight, maybe even 2/3 through their fight. I thought Brook was ahead or even with Spence. So he's always competitive. And you know what? All things considered, COVID and everything that's going on, if you get Crawford and Brook on regular ESPN here in America, no pay-per-view, I don't hate the fight. I think we could do a lot worse. We could certainly do a lot better. I get it, okay? I'd love to see Terence Crawford fighting Errol Spence on pay-per-view November 14th. That is what boxing really needs right now. But if it's on regular ESPN and you get Lomachenko Lopez on regular ESPN in October, and then in November you get Terence Crawford and Kell Brook on regular ESPN, guys, that's not bad. That's really not bad. All right. All right, a couple more on the schedule here. The 2020 USA Boxing National Championships. They are going to have national championships this year. And so USA Boxing, the amateurs over here. And it's going to be in Shreveport, Louisiana, the boxing hotbed of Shreveport, Louisiana, at the Shreveport Convention Center, December 5th through 12th. So I wanted to throw that out there because I've had a few of you guys ask, what's up with the amateurs right now? When are they getting back? There's actually been some amateur cards I've seen on the record. There was a show here in Georgia recently, not in Atlanta, but somewhere in Georgia. So some of the cards are getting back to action in this part of the country, and they're going to put on the 2020 U.S. National Championships in Shreveport in December. And then last but not least, Bob Arum is talking about December 19th, Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder, the third fight. Now, I've talked about this before on previous episodes, Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, but there's a new wrinkle. They really think if they change the bubble protocol that they're going to be able to get some fans in attendance. Now, it might only be 5,000 people, maybe it's 8,000, whatever. I don't even think it'll be at 50% capacity. But for those of you who would want to go to that fight, it's looking more and more like a real possibility that, because I've had a lot of you guys ask, man, when the hell will big time boxing come back? When the hell can I buy a ticket and go to a fight? And not just a club show, but a big fight. Well, it might happen December 19th. It's looking more and more like a possibility. The people that I know there in the commission and the people related to this situation that I've talked to, they're trying to, they have a bubble protocol there at the MGM Grand. Top Rank does, and it coincides with NSAC and what the Nevada authorities want to get fans in there in December post-election, which I do think a lot of stuff is going to start opening up after the presidential election in November. A lot of this shit, you guys know how it is. It always comes down to politics. Not to pick one side or another. Both sides do all this shit. But that's, just trust me. After the election, shit's going to start opening up a little bit. And I think that December 19th, it's very possible that you guys might be able to actually attend a live boxing match. And actually, I'm just thinking, Allegiant Stadium, I want to say like the I don't know the exact seating capacity for that venue, but it's definitely more than 20,000. So I don't know what it is because it's an NFL stadium, and generally they seat at least 50,000. So if they can get a quarter of it full, man, maybe you get a crowd of 10, 15,000 people. You have to sit 3 seats apart or something. All that's kind of being explored and worked out. People would maybe have to wear a mask. I don't know. Probably have to take your temperature and all that kind of stuff as you go in. There would be protocols. But you guys might get big-time boxing by the end of the year. And I think that's a positive, man. That's a net positive because people are dying for it. And we know that we're going to get the third fight between Fury and Wilder. I'd rather knock that shit out this year so that we can move on in the heavyweight division to bigger and better things in 2021. And really, you could say that about the entire boxing business in general, right? Let's get these placeholders out of the damn way and get to bigger business next year. Let's not kick the can down the road. Let's look over here in the chat real quick. Captain Hook Chronicles on the chat. What's up, brother? He says they do the IBF mandatory fight in October 17th in Germany to know the new challenger for Triple G. Oh, okay. So there's an IBF eliminator fight, I think is what you're saying. Okay, that's October 17th. Patrice Volny is going to be on that fight. Okay. So that determines the new main. I thought it was the Polish kid, but yeah. October 17th. I wonder in Germany if they let fans in yet. Anyway. Davidian Simmons in the chat says, hey, great content. God bless everyone in the chat 100. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, my man. All right, guys. Man, no one calling in, and very few of you on the chat. So, I realized something. We have a big weekend in boxing coming up. We have a loaded Saturday, but it's really not a crossover type of event. None of the fights this weekend are. They really are for the diehard fans. This is it's loaded for diehard fans, but it's not the crossover appeal, because the week of the Fury-Wilder rematch, when I was doing that preview, there was a ton of people on. There was just buzz and excitement because that really had that crossover appeal. As good as this Charlo double header pay-per-view is, it just doesn't have that crossover appeal, man. Okay. Let's do a quick review. Saturday, September 19th, Top Rank on ESPN. Jose Pedraza scores a unanimous decision win over Javier Molina, as I told you guys he would. 99-91, 98-92 twice. And F.A. Ajagba and Robisi Ramirez scored distance wins. A lot of people shitting on F.A. Ajagba's Top Rank debut. Look, do I think he looked great? No, but he got rounds in. What I saw is somebody trying to work on some stuff. Now, he's definitely in his head. I think he's been reading the tweets and the complaints from people, and I think maybe he's listening a little bit too much to that because he's thinking, but I like that he's trying different things. I saw him trying a couple different things in this fight that he wasn't trying before. He was kind of just going out there and just fighting, and he's thinking a little bit now, setting things up. Top Rank knows what they're doing. Do I see a future champion in F.A. Ajagba? No. Do I see some future fun fights once he steps up and gets in there with a guy that can crack and punch back at him? He can still punch. I think he's gonna make for some fun fights. But I don't see a future champion, but not everyone's going to be a champion, guys. And he's still young and learning, so chill out a little bit. I think a lot of you guys just jumped all over this dude way too quick, and you should never do that with a prospect. Okay, PBC on Showtime. This was a TGB Promotions card at the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. And I saw people shitting on this card left and right. And I covered this card for ringtv.com. Full disclosure. Check out my 3 articles there, my 3 recaps on ringtv.com about this card. But I thought it was a pretty solid card. Now, the main event sucked. The last 3-4 rounds were pretty good. But the first 2 fights were pretty solid, man. I thought there was some pretty good action there. So Jaron Boots Ennis improves to 26-0. So for everything I just said about F.A. Ajagba related to prospects, I'm going to be a complete hypocrite. I am all in on Jaron Boots Ennis, okay? I've told you guys before, he's one of the top prospects in boxing. I love that him and Virgil Ortiz are in the welterweight division right now. They will both be junior middleweights in the next 2 or 3 years, and they might settle at super middleweight. They may eventually get to super middleweight, seriously. But the prime of their careers will be at 154, 160. These guys, you would hope, you really, really, really would hope, Virgil Ortiz and Jaron Boots Ennis should fight 2 or 3 times over the next 5 years. That's what you hope happens. Unfortunately, because this is boxing, Ennis is now aligned with the PBC. They don't do business with Oscar. And, Virgil's over at Golden Boy. They're going to market themselves 2 different ways. Virgil Ortiz is going to be a West Coast fighter with the Mexican-American fan base. Boots is going to be an East Coast fighter with the African-American fan base. You already know how these guys are going to be promoted. Expect to see Boots, once he's winning titles and at that level, fighting at Barclays in Brooklyn, and then eventually doing pay-per-views and stuff in Las Vegas. And expect at some point Virgil Ortiz to become the new guy for Golden Boy to promote around the 2 Mexican holidays in Las Vegas or maybe Southern California. You can kind of see, and then of course Virgil Ortiz will fight in Texas as well, where he's from. And there's a growing fan base and a growing boxing business there. But you can see how these guys are going to be marketed, right? The writing's on the wall. But I'm all in on this as I call him a prospect because, well, I should state, TKO 6 win over Juan Carlos Abreu. I kind of jumped ahead there. The Dominican fighter who's never been stopped before. He's old. He's been softened up by Humberto Soto, Jamal James, Igadijus Kavaliauskas, Alexander Besputin. All those were distance fights that were grueling. It took a lot of punishment in those fights. But the way he got dropped in the 5th round off of that step back counter uppercut from Ennis, that was some shit that's really hard to teach. You could do that kind of stuff on the mitts. You see kids doing that. But to do it in a fight, to do it in sparring, and do it in a fight, that's another thing. It's one thing to step forward if you got a guy lunging in and hit him with an uppercut like that. That's not that difficult. But to, Abreu is shooting, I think, I want to say it was a left hand, like a straight left, kind of like a hard jab. And it wasn't just a pawing jab, it was a hard jab. And Ennis stepped back, made him miss, and then boom, cut him with that uppercut. And he threw it from the hip. That's, I think, why Abreu didn't see it. It wasn't right here up top where he could see it, and he just touched him. He wound it up from the hip and was able to shoot that from the right angle, get enough leverage. Abreu didn't see it coming, and he never recovered. It was beautiful. And it was, I can't put it past Povetkin's knockout of White because Povetkin, his uppercut was even more beautiful, number one, but number two, it was a one-punch knockout, right? This wasn't a one-punch knockout, but it broke the granite of Abreu, who's been in with some top dudes. You heard the names I just named. Those are all solid fighters he's been in with, lost, but went to distance. And Ennis broke the chin. He broke him and then dropped him twice in the 6th before getting him out of there. So now Abreu is going to be stopped a few more times through his career because that granite has been cracked. Once it's cracked, that's it. It never goes back to solid granite again. Once you finally chip away at it and crack it, it's done. And Ennis did that to him. So he's got the power. He's got good personality. He's marketable. The only negative I can say, and this is me being really picky, he did a lot of barking in this fight. A lot of when he was punching, that kind of shit. That could be timed. Don't do that stuff. That I would just say, clean that shit up. Clean up the barking and the grunting on every shot. And then there's nothing else I could pick apart from this performance. Yes, he was in there with a guy who was softened up and tailor-made for him to look good, but he didn't just look good. He could have went the distance and won 12 rounds and looked really good that way, but he had the style points. And that matters in boxing, man. So I'm sky high on Jaron Boots Ennis. Really sky high. Super chat pledge from Harrison Property. Thank you so much. He says, Mike, do you have an international number for calling Mike? I'll call in. Thanks, buddy. So, yeah, if you're in the UK, look right behind me on the screen, man. 020-810-36051. I think you got to put your country code before that. But yeah, so that's the international number if you're in the UK. If you're in some other part of the world, just may as well call the American number. You're going to have to pay. If you're in Australia, yeah, pick one. Harrison Properties in Australia. Call the American line or the UK line. You're going to have to pay long distance. Sorry, man. I only got 2 local lines for the show. Maybe in the future, if I get more callers from Australia, I can do another line, but I pay the phone bill every month for these phone lines, and each one of them, they get pretty expensive pretty quick. So yeah, sorry, dude. But if you could call in long distance sometime, we'll keep it short. I'd love to get you on the show, brother. So okay, I talked about Ennis over Abreu. Let's talk about King Tug. Tug Scott Nyayambar improved to 12-1 with a split decision win over Barbados native Kobiat Breedy, who was dropped in the 1st, dropped in the 2nd, had an abysmal start, but calmed down and changed the distance. He was standing at distance in the first 2 rounds, and Nyayambar is, I want to say, like 3-4 inches taller, longer reach, and he was just clipping him at that range. But once Breedy got at mid-range, he was able to stay inside of that power for the most part, and his hand speed was actually pretty good. And he was actually, people that know, he had like, I want to say 100, 200 plus fights when he's a native of Barbados, but down there's some pretty damn good Caribbean fighters. Don't sleep on the amateur system down there. They have some very good fighters. And he fought down there 100, 200 amateur fights. This dude is schooled. He's not a knockout puncher. Everything is an arm punch, but he has speed with those punches and nice angles. His footwork and kind of switching stance and getting on the outside, getting underneath King Tug's punches, the hand speed, all of it was giving him a lot of problems. The fighter out of Mongolia who now trains out of Los Angeles. However, because of the early lead King Tug had built up, even though Breedy won several of the middle rounds and maybe one or so late rounds, but I don't really think he won any rounds late. I think by the 8th, 9th round, his left eye was swollen, almost shut. And he had moments, but the rounds were being controlled by King Tug. And he had built such an early lead and closed the show strong enough where I thought Nyambar clearly won this fight. So the judges scored this really close, man. Glenn Feldman, 114-112. Steve Weisfeld, 114-113, which to me was crazy. Steve Weisfeld usually does a pretty good job, but he basically had, in terms of rounds, he had Breedy winning. That's not the fight that took place. Without the knockdowns, King Tug won this fight. Like that's just what I saw. I covered this fight for Ring TV, so I was watching it intently. I was watching round by round. And I think it was Steve Farhood on Showtime that was doing his ringside scorecard, and he had Nyambar winning pretty handedly too. That's the fight I saw. But Don Trella somehow had it 115-111 for Colby Breedy, which means, again, with the 2 knockdowns, guys, that's 9 rounds to 3. That is not the fight that took place. So we'll talk about that in just a second, but I see we got a call here on the line. Let me jump over to the phone lines. Anonymous, I don't see what number you're calling from, but you're on the line. You're on TNC. Go.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
What's up? Is this Harrison Property?
It's John calling in.
Oh, how you doing, brother?
It could be, yeah.
How you doing, man?
Yeah, good, thank you. I was feeling a little sorry for you, so I thought I'd better call in.
It's all good, man. It's, I get it. I get it, honestly.
I actually have nothing pretty much to talk about, so I'm not even,
Well, you know what? Okay, first of all, yeah. What time is it? Is it tomorrow over there? Is it Tuesday yet over there?
No, it's Tuesday, and it's almost 7 a.m., so...
Holy shit, you're up early. Yep. Are you up for work or what?
No, I didn't sleep very well. I was working, unfortunately, so... Okay. All night, but, yep.
That's
I
awesome.
wanted to say one fight I'm looking forward to is, and I'm hoping that they can get it over the line, is Chisora and Usyk. I'm really looking forward to that one. So,
well, so Eddie Hearn's been talking about that, and I'm sure you've seen the videos on social media of Usyk taunting Chisora taunting Usyk. It's been great. Two great personalities, but Eddie Hearn says that fight will happen by the end of this year. So I think that's another one that probably will happen in December on DAZN here in the States. Do you have DAZN in Australia yet?
I'm sorry?
Do you have DAZN over in Australia yet, or no?
No, we don't. No, unfortunately not. No.
What's the network over there that just had the Tim Tszyu fight? What network was that?
I'm not sure, actually, to be honest. I have no idea.
I can't.
I just watched the replay on YouTube, so.
Oh, I hear you. Hey, man, I don't blame you. Whatever network it is it'll be on. It'll definitely be televised over there, I'm sure. But probably in December.
Yeah. I really like that fight a lot. I find that very, very intriguing indeed. So, yep.
Yeah, that's a good place setter for Usyk to kind of show where he's at in the heavyweight division, because Derek Chisora on any given night, he could give any heavyweight in the world a tough night at the office. So,
he's back crazy. I can just see him coming in, taking punches just so he can try and catch Usyk. And
oh yeah,
I think he's going to run a freight train. I really do. That's why it's so intriguing. It's salivating, that fight. So yeah.
Yeah, that's one that I'm definitely looking forward to, and it's pretty much a year in the making. I mean, there was a delay. I think it was supposed to happen late last year, but Usyk got injured, and then of course COVID. So it's one of those situations where we've been talking about it for a year plus, and I just want to see the damn fight. I look forward to it.
Fingers crossed. And probably the only other one I would want to touch on that I find extremely intriguing is Andrade and Billy Joe Saunders. I love that fight as well. A lot of people don't, I know, but I find that intensely intriguing. So, yeah.
You know, that fight was supposed to happen, I think, was it last year or maybe even 2018?
Yeah, I know.
And I was actually interested in that fight too, because it was kind of put up or shut up time for both of them. So, you know, if that fight could be salvaged at any point in the future, it'd probably be at 168, but I would enjoy it. I would enjoy seeing it.
Yeah. Oh, that would be great. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
But that's it, buddy. I got nothing else. Like I said, I felt a little bit sorry for you, and I thought I'd call in. So
well, I appreciate your pity. Have a good day, John. Have a good morning.
So, yeah, you too, and keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you, sir.
All right, not a problem, buddy.
All right.
Take care.
Bye. There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. A pity call from John, otherwise known as Harrison Property, here on the chat. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah, okay. I'm with him. Usyk Chisora, when that fight happens, I'm going to be very, very interested, especially with Usyk coming off an injury. You know, how is it going to feel throwing some? Because he's going to have to turn Chisora a lot. You know, there's going to be a lot of boxing and turning and angles, and you know, we'll have to see how he looks after that. I think it was a shoulder injury. So back to Nyambar Breedy. I talked about Don Trello's shitty scorecard. Look, this has happened several times, and there was one a couple weeks ago. Who the hell was it? I can't remember. Was it Lou Moret? I think it was Lou Moret. But some of these guys, just every now and then, they have a scorecard that I just think is so bad that the right man won. Again, in this case, and I think in that other case with Lou Moret, the right man won. But what if this scorecard determined who won the fight? I'm sorry, Breedy did good. He did better than people expected. You do not score fights based on someone exceeding your expectations or not living up to your expectations. You score fights based on who won each freaking round. And you score round by round. Each round is its own 3-minute fight. That's how you score, okay? And I think so many people, including professional judges, score fights based on... I honestly think Don Trella saw the first 2 rounds, how one-sided they were. And then when Breedy started doing better, he was like, oh, man, he's doing a lot better than he did in those first 2 rounds. I'm going to give him this round. Well, just because he's doing better doesn't necessarily mean he's winning the round. And I just thought clearly that King Tug won probably 8 rounds in this fight. Anyway, for Nyambar, he's definitely a top 10 featherweight, but I don't think he's top 5. I just think he falls a little short of that. There just seems to be something missing with this guy where he has moments. He has really good moments, but he doesn't put it together in a whole fight. There's just these incomplete pieces of him in every fight. And I just think, against the upper echelon, guys like Gary Russell Jr., that's who defeated him the last time out in the ring. And I think that was earlier this year, actually. February, March, something like that. He's just always going to fall short. Always. And that's just how it is. For Breedy, he proved that he's a tough dude. I want to see him again. I want to see him back on American Air again. He has earned that right with this performance. Okay, main event. Erickson Lubin, UD12, unanimous decision win over Terrell Gousha. He improves to 23-1. Gousha waited way too long to get started. He hurt Lubin in the 10th, and then all of a sudden, a fight broke out. And rounds 10, 11, and 12 were actually pretty intriguing. Lubin landed a huge right hand with Gousha in the corner, his back to the ropes, And Gousha showed he's got a pretty damn good beard because he ate a shot that would have pieced up most guys pretty bad, at least dropped them. Definitely could have KO'd a lot of fighters in that division. So Lubin is, okay, well, let's start with Gousha. Gousha is just never going to be a top-tier pro. He's just not that guy. He had a good amateur record. I think he was in the World Series of Boxing briefly. He was a national amateur champion a couple times. He went to the Olympics. But he's going to end up becoming a gatekeeper level junior middleweight and maybe at some point middleweight. That's just where he's going to be as a pro. I don't see him as a top 10 junior middleweight. I never really did. He's just not that guy. For Erickson Lubin, he's 5-0 since the KO1 loss to Jermell Charlo in October 2017. That was 3 years ago, right? 5-0. He's beat some good fighters, but I don't see an elite special fighter there. I see too many holes in his game. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. He's very young. I go back to the F.A. Ajagba example. Lubin, way better than F.A. Ajagba, I feel. Doesn't have the same kind of power, but he definitely is more schooled and more skilled. So he's further along, but he's nowhere near the level, obviously, of somebody like Jaron Ennis, who we saw, right? So he's just not that level of fighter. He's just not that guy. But at some point, he's going to be in line for another title shot. What's interesting is this was a WBC mandatory. He is in line for the WBC 154-pound title, which, once we get to the fight preview, Jermell Charlo, who beat him and has that title, he lost it against Tony Harrison, won it back. He's going to unify with Jeison Rosario, I think, the WBA and IBF titles. So the winner of that fight, if they want to keep their WBC title, will eventually have to face Erickson Lubin. It remains to be seen which one he'll fight. But did I see anything, have I seen anything in the past 3 years that makes me believe he's going to beat Jermell Charlo in a rematch? No. If somehow Jeison Rosario beats Jermell Charlo this weekend, could Lubin possibly beat Jeison Rosario? Maybe, because of the styles. Because Rosario isn't the most technically sound boxer. But we'll talk about that way in the future. Obviously, I wouldn't pick Lubin against either of them, against Jermell Charlo or Jeison Rosario. I just wouldn't pick him to beat either of those guys. But at this point, he's proven himself as a top 10 junior middleweight, or maybe right on the bubble. That's a pretty loaded division, and I do think he's in the bottom half of the top 10 now. So good for him. He's still learning. All right, so let's get to the fight preview. And we got a loaded weekend here, guys. And not just the weekend, man. Wednesday, September 23rd, there's a PBC card on Fox Sports 1 from the Microsoft Theater in downtown Los Angeles. So you guys are going to get some boxing on Wednesday night. On Thursday night, there's a UFC Fight Pass card from Biloxi, Mississippi. Friday, September 25th, Tony Yoka, 7-0 heavyweight prospect, going up against, I think, his biggest test to date against Johan Duhaupas in Paris. So Duhaupas and Yoka, both from that part of the world, and they're going to be fighting there. I don't think there's going to be fans or anything, but I expect this to do a good rating over there in France. And it is a that domestic kind of grudge match type of matchup. It's a good place setter for Yoka to see where he places right now compared to the other heavyweight prospects. I like this matchup a lot. I think that if you guys can find that somewhere on YouTube or something, it'd definitely be worth checking out to see where Tony Yoka is. Because, after the Olympics, there was high expectations for him. He's had issues with drug testing and things like that. I won't beat that dead horse. But it'll just be interesting to see where he's at because there's potential. There's definitely potential there. And look, with heavyweights, you're always 1 or 2 fights out from a possible title shot. Now, Yoka's far away from that, but if he does really well against Duhaupas, really, really well, the buzz will come right back. You're a one big knockout win in the heavyweight division. You're always one knockout win away from getting all the buzz back that you might have lost. So all that momentum that he lost, he does well against Duhaupas this Friday, boom, it's right back. And people are talking about him again. Captain Hook Chronicles in the chat says, Mike, who previews a French fight? Everything is possible on this channel. Hey, I know, man. You've asked me about you've asked me about Tony Yoka a lot, and I haven't talked about him too much on the show. I haven't had too much to talk about as it relates to Tony Yoka, but now I do. I like this fight a lot. I like this matchup a lot. Duhaupas is, generally speaking, pretty durable, and he's experienced. He's been in with top heavyweights, so he's going to bring all that experience in there. He has been softened up just enough. I think Wilder stopped him. He's taken some hard shots. He's been in some tough fights. So this isn't the absolute peak best version of Johann Duhaupas, but he's still very, very durable and a good gatekeeper level heavyweight. So we're going to see, this is a test for Yoka. We're going to see how he does with this test. Also Friday in Mexico, Sergiy Derevyanchenko, 17-0, 154-pound prospect, staying busy fighting down in Mexico. All right, Saturday, September 26th. It will actually be my mother's 60th birthday this Saturday. My mother, Laura, or as some people say, Laura, turning 60 years old this Saturday. So I will be with family. I'll be hanging out with my family, celebrating my mother's birthday. I mean, 60, that's like a milestone number, right? So I'm not going to see all these fights live. So I'm going to have to turn off my phone, turn off my Twitter, because I'm just not going to be able to see. And I don't want any spoilers, damn it. So don't be tweeting me or messaging me Saturday. I'll be with family. But I'm going to try to convince my mom and everyone else to get the Charlo card. We might be watching that one. We shall see. We'll see what kind of mood mom is in. My mom likes boxing, okay? She's watched a ton of fights. So maybe we'll get her watching the fights and we'll check out the Charlo card with the family. We shall see. But ESPN Plus card from London, Josh Taylor going up against an undefeated Thai fighter with a completely dog shit resume. But with these Thai fighters, you never know, dude. You just never know. Sometimes the resume, they live up to their resume, and it's dog shit. Sometimes you get a killer. Some of these guys come out of Thailand, and they're just absolute killers, man. So Rungvisai, you know what I'm saying? Srisaket Sor Rungvisai. A lot of you guys slept on him and didn't know much about him, and I understand. He didn't have a loaded resume. But when he went over here and fought Chocolatito, hey, now everyone knows who Rungvisai is, right? So we don't know what's going to happen when Josh Taylor fights Opinion Kungsong. Opinion Kungsong. They're both 16-0, but Taylor's 16-0, much more impressive than the Thai kids. But we'll find out. Usually Thai fighters are extremely durable, extremely durable. So Taylor is defending his unified WBA and IBF 140-pound titles in this fight. And I think it's interesting. I want to see how Taylor looks. It's been almost a year since the World Boxing Super Series finale. That fight between him and Prograis, it's only been about a year. It feels like that was 3 or 4 years ago because we just haven't seen either of them in the ring. So it'll be good to see Josh Taylor in the ring. I think he has real potential to become a pound-for-pound level player in the sport. He's got the potential. He's got to take care of business against Kong Song. Captain Hill Chronicles in the chat says, she's young. Congrats to your mom. Thank you very, very much. I'll tell you said that. That'll make her day. World Boxing Super Series. Speaking of, the Cruiserweight finale finally happening. Finally happening this Saturday. In Munich, Germany, Uniel Dorticos, 24-1, 34 years old, out of Cuba, going up against Marius Breedys, 26-1, 35 years old, out of Latvia. So in terms of the matchup, the numbers, pretty even, man. I mean, these guys are pretty close in age, similar records. Dorticos is 6'3", 80-inch reach. Breedys is 6'1", with a 75-inch reach. So Dorticos, a little longer, a little taller, and even though he's a year younger, I think he's a little older in boxing years, okay? He's been stopped. I mean, he was brutally stopped by Murat Gassiev. That was a brutal one-punch kind of knockout. I think he got up, but he was done. But that was late in that fight, and he took a lot of punishment before it. Dorticos is another one of these guys. I talked about Juan Carlos Abreu earlier, where Dorticos has always had a pretty damn good chin. But Murat Gassiev got through it. He cracked it. Now, does Breedys hit hard enough to knock him out? No. But I think Breedys has a little more gas left in the tank, and he does a little bit more on the inside of that mid-range. He's crafty. He fights dirty. He's one of the dirtier fighters in the sport when he wants to be. And I think he's going to get his way over in Germany. Dorticos will own the real estate from the outside, but on the inside of that mid-range, which is where Breidis is going to want to be, he'll run things there. And if things get chippy and dirty, that favors Breidis. Davidian Simmons asking, what's the number to call in? Look right behind me, my friend, on the sign right behind me. If you're in the States, it's 213-267-7787. Dorticos 2-0 since the TKO 12 loss to Gassiev in the first season of the World Boxing Super Series, the semis back in 2018. He won the vacant IBF Cruiserweight belt with a KO 10 win over Andrew Tabiti. That was a good performance from Dorticos. Really good performance. Breidis is 3-0 since his majority decision loss to Alexander Usyk in the Series 1 semis in 2018. He had the WBO title after he beat Golovkin, but the WBO stripped him because they mandated an immediate rematch. And I remember you guys asking me, well, is he going to fight the rematch or is he going to go into the World Boxing Super Series finale? And I said, oh, he's going to go into the finale because there's a guaranteed bonus in it for him if he wins. There's actually more money in it for Breidis to dump the BO title and go into the World Boxing Super Series finale against Dorticos than there would have been to keep the BO title and fight Golovkin again. So it's prize fighting, baby. You do it for the money. And that's what he's doing here. Neither man has fought since they fought in Season 2 World Boxing Super Series semifinals in June. Who will a 15-month layoff affect more? My hunch, it's going to affect Dorticos more because he is going to rely on boxing from the outside, timing. Breidis is just going to get nasty, get inside on him, and rough him up. And yes, there will be ring rust there, but the timing, you don't need it as much for that style. So I think the layoff is going to affect Dorticos more. I expect Breidis to win this fight by decision. Super chat pledge from my man, John Uden. Thank you so much, brother. He says, I'm taking Breidis. He went toe-to-toe with Usyk and is technically better. Dorticos' power is real, but can get a bit wild. Breidis could catch him with a perfect shot. Also, will this be the end of the World Boxing Super Series? First of all, good point, man. You make a good point that Breidis is probably better technically. I think the Dorticos does come from that Cuban school, but he is a little more rugged. I just think Dorticos is better from the outside because of his length and he knows how to use it. But you're right. He does get wide and looping with the shots. And I expect Breidis to get under that power, under those looping shots, get inside and do his work. I think it's going to distance. I don't think Breidis will stop him, but anything's possible. Is this the end of the World Boxing Super Series? I don't know, man. They talked about doing a third season, and they were actually talking about bringing on female fighters too, because they'd come super cheap. And generally speaking, over in Europe and in Asia and in Latin America, the female fighters do pretty well, especially in Europe, though. Certain European countries, the female fighters actually do decent ratings. And if they got any of the Japanese girls involved and stuff, maybe some of the Mexican fighters involved, they could probably do pretty well with it. So they were talking about doing, I think, 3 different men's divisions and then a female division, something like that. So they were talking about it, but it'd just be about raising money. I know this. They absolutely can't do it in the current situation. They can't do it in COVID. But if we get back to 100% with, fans being allowed at fights and stuff, then yes, it's very possible. And I do think it could come back next year. I really, really do. But in this current state, you ain't going to hear nothing about it. And with the zone being in the condition it's in right now, you're not going to hear nothing about it. If we get back to, I still think post-election, a lot of this COVID stuff's going to quiet down. If we get back to 100% full attendance next year, and then Canelo and everything with the zone kind of gets cleared up, I think we'll see a season 3 eventually. If that stuff doesn't get cleared up, though, it might kill it for good, man, which is a shame because I really enjoyed it. Harrison Property with the super chat. Thank you so much, man. He says, you're absolutely correct, Mike. My wife is Thai, So I spend a lot of time in Thailand. Thailand has a lot of hidden gems coming out of the woodwork. Thanks. Yeah, dude, man, I'm jealous. I'd love to go over there. I have friends that have been over to like Phuket, and they had a blast. They absolutely freaking loved it over there. So one of these days, I'd love to get over there. All right, we got another phone call here. Let me jump to the phones. Let's see, 716. You're on TNC. Go.
Hey, what's going on? Great show. I don't know. This is my first time actually on the show, but yeah, I don't know. I can't wait to this week, just to see the Charlo brothers. I'm definitely gonna watch that. So the fights last week was pretty good with Lubin and Gousha, So
it's a solid card, man.
I can't, I just can't wait because I really think that Charlo's they're gonna turn up. I know they're in tough fights, but I really like Jermell and Jermall. I like Jermall's jab and his uppercut. I think, if I don't know, we'll see. But I really think they're gonna handle their business on Saturday. So, but it's not gonna be easy, of course, because Rosario and Derevyanchenko are they're solid. So may the best man win.
I hear you, brother.
Yeah, that's my call.
I didn't catch your name, man. What's your name?
Davidian.
Oh, this is Davidian. Oh, what's up, man? Okay, I didn't know it was you.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling in, man. Yeah, look, I was actually about to get to that fight preview, and look, I agree with you, brother. I'm starting to feel just a gut feel that both Charlos are going to make statements Saturday. I actually think they're both going to have statement type of performances, and I think they're both going to get knockout wins. That's just a gut feel I have. It's not going to be easy, but I really see that happening.
Something about it, I went back and forth, because I liked Rosario's performance against J-Rock.
Right.
But I don't know, Charlo's just totally. I like the way their feet are. He's just got quick reflexes. I don't know, he has to be careful though, because Rosario does have, got a good, got heavy hands. So,
right.
But I think I don't know. It's gonna be explosive. So. Yeah.
So I gotta ask this.
Thank you.
Well, I gotta ask you one question before I let you go. Are you buying it or are you streaming it?
Oh, of course I'm always gonna buy it.
Okay.
I'm always gonna buy the support. Earl Spence, I'll watch. The course heavyweights, Tyson Fury and Wilder. I'll buy those. And then now, the Charlo tour is gonna be on paper. So I'm always buy. I'm not gonna steal nothing or stream it or I don't know. I'm just not gonna do that.
That's awesome, brother.
Gonna do it the right way.
That's awesome, bro. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hey, man, call in anytime, brother. I appreciate you calling the show, man.
All right. Yep. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Yep.
There he goes, ladies and gentlemen. Davidian. Yeah, so he kind of, I kind of preemptively got to my opinions on this, on the Charlo card, but let me jump into that because I talked about the World Boxing Super Series finale, which I'm excited for that fight. The cruiserweights always deliver. They always deliver. And I think that those two are going to deliver Saturday. But let's talk about the big show. Showtime pay-per-view from the Mohegan Sun Casino in Connecticut. Real quick, undercard. I think this is a solid undercard. And I've seen people shitting on it on Twitter and stuff. Well, number one, okay, before I get to that, let me get on a soapbox a second here with the pay-per-view aspect. I get it. It's $75. A lot of you don't feel this should be on pay-per-view. If it were me and I was managing these fighters, I would want to play the long game. Meaning, instead of getting the big payday right now and going pay-per-view, let's put this on Fox. Let's put this on regular Fox, 100 million plus homes. Maybe it's more than that. And every sports bar in America, this will be on. All you got to do is turn on Fox, right? You could go to any bar or pub down the street. You can go to a damn pizza joint, your local neighborhood restaurant, and ask them to turn the TV onto Fox, and you can see this card. I think that would be huge. And think about it, every airport would have this shit on, right? everywhere. It's just regular Fox. That's what I would put this show on. And I would tell the Charlo brothers and everybody else, look, man, instead of getting 2-3 mil, the career high payday, we can only give you $1 million. Hell, we can only give you $750. But do this now, and there's $5, $6, $7 million paydays down the line. Build up your brand, okay? Look at what Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury just did on pay-per-view, Fox pay-per-view, not Showtime pay-per-view, earlier this year. It didn't do 1 million pay-per-view buys, but it did, 800, 900,000, and both dudes made 8 figures, tens of millions of dollars, right? Play the long game, right? That would be my philosophy. But we don't know what the future holds with COVID. We don't know when fans can come back. And the management and the fighters have decided they're going to play the short game and go for the money right now. I get it. I will never diss a prize fighter for going for the money. For some fans are really upset that this is a $75 pay-per-view, and I understand. I'm always going to stick up for the fans. I hate pay-per-view, okay? But there's a certain segment of boxing Twitter / MMA Twitter, and I actually tweeted about this yesterday. And I wasn't talking about nobody in particular, but I see more and more people shitting on boxing nonstop, saying the best ain't fighting the best, bullshit matchups, and UFC's crushing it. UFC, the best are fighting the best, right? And I've talked about how different boxing is from UFC. It's much bigger globally. You have to deal with many different entities and commissions and regulatory authorities and all this. There's also different laws, the Ali Act and everything. Boxing is way more regulated than UFC, MMA, I should say. So you can't really it's an apples to oranges comparison. But these same people that are shitting on boxing, the best ain't fighting the best right now, blah, blah, blah. Well, dude, look at this card. I'm not saying none of these guys are stars. And when I think pay-per-view, when I think of the 80s and 90s and I think pay-per-view, stars fought on pay-per-view. None of these guys are stars. They're not there yet. None of them, okay? So, yeah, in the old school mindset I got, this isn't a pay-per-view card. But Charlo, Jermall Charlo, Sergiy Derevyanchenko, that's 2 top 5 middleweights. Jermell Charlo and Jeison Rosario, that's 2 top 5 junior middleweights. So this truly is an example of the best fighting the best. These are 2 fights where you have 2 top 5 fighters in their respective divisions fighting each other. So UFC, people act like UFC does that shit on free TV all the time. No, usually it's on their pay-per-views. They do a lot of pay-per-views over there, right? And they do put the best against the best. I don't want to make this a boxing versus UFC thing, because there are things UFC is doing very good right now, and there are things that boxing could do better right now. Of course, we know this. But this is a situation where you got 2 good quality fights. It's on pay-per-view. Just like Davidian just said, he's going to buy this. He's going to support it. Look, man, if you got $75 and you want to check out these great fights, if you were going to buy a pay-per-view this year, this is it. This is the best pay-per-view top to bottom this year. Again, would I rather it be on regular TV? Yes, of course. But it's not. It's on pay-per-view. And all things considered, it's a pretty damn good card. It might be the best card top to bottom that PBC's ever done. I've been saying that for a couple months. It's among one of the best cards they've ever done. And with top 2, 3, 4 cards PBC has done since they've been around, since what, 2014, 2015? So that's saying something, man. Okay. Undercard, Daniel Roman, coming off his loss to Akhmadiev in January, where he was competitive in that loss. Daniel Roman is a guy who's willing to fight anybody. Going up against Juan Carlos Payano, who KO1 lost to Naoya Inoue in 2018, KO9 lost to Luis Nery in 2019 on the Pac Thurman card. So he's had a couple of bad losses recently, but he's an experienced guy who's been in with some very good fighters. He's a quality fighter. Roman Payano is a solid matchup. That's a solid matchup. Also, Brandon Figueroa coming off his disputed draw with Julio Ceja versus Damian Vasquez, fighter out of Colorado with some decent experience. That's an okay fight. This is for the WBO Super Bantamweight title. Decent fight. But Luis Nery fighting for the vacant WBC super bantamweight fight. So perhaps you get the winner in the future between Brandon Figueroa and Damian Vasquez. Perhaps the winner will fight Luis Nery because he's going to win his fight, and unified titles early next year. So you have something you could possibly build to there. Also, John Riel Casimero, Filipino fighter, very exciting Filipino fighter, defending his WBO bantamweight title. An undefeated Russian junior middleweight, Bakrem Murtazaliev. He's fighting as well, and he might be a future opponent for one of the Charlo brothers. So, all in all, decent talent on that undercard. A lot of times the undercard is shit. I think all things considered, pretty solid undercard, man. If that whole undercard I just put together, okay? If that undercard was a Showtime show, just regular Showtime, you guys would say, hey, this is a pretty decent Showtime show. I'm not saying it'd be great, but you'd be like, hey, this is pretty damn decent. There's a lot of fighters here. All right. Let's get to the two main fights. Jermell Charlo, defending his WBC 154-pound title, going up against Jeison Rosario, who's defending his WBA and IBF junior middleweight titles. So this is a 3-title unification, and I get it. The BC, in particular the BA, are disgusting, but all things considered, for this fight, these are 3 legitimate titles, guys. Jermall Charlo beat Tony Harrison to get his title back, and Jeison Rosario beat J-Rock, who beat Jarrett Hurd. So, all things considered, these are 3 legit titles. These aren't paper titles. So, 3 of the 4 titles being unified, this is a damn good fight. Jermell KO 11, Tony Harrison, his last fight in December. And, of course, Rosario with the TKO 5 win over Julian Williams back in January. Here's the big difference between these guys' resume. So, look, the Charlos don't have the best resumes. They don't. But you can make a case that Jermell has the better resume. Even though he's got a loss, he's got a better resume right now than Jermall. And I'll tell you why, okay? Jermell has fought Tony Harrison twice, but he has wins over Gabe Rosado, Vans Martirosyan. He has that KO1 win over Erickson Lubin, who's a proven top 10 154, and a still serviceable Austin Trout. So none of those are great names, but they're all solid names. So Jermell Charlo actually has the better resume, even though he's got a loss on his record. Losses don't mean shit. They really don't. Rosario has that win over J-Rock, and the rest of his resume is very weak. So the X factor in both of these fights have questions and X factors. The X factor in this fight is how real is Rosario? Did he strike lightning in a bottle against J-Rock earlier this year? Was it just the right matchup at the right time, the best camp of his life, and it was just the night of his life? Or was it the first time he trained that serious and added new wrinkles to his game and showed us who he really is? Those questions will be answered in this fight, okay? In the other main event, I don't know which one is the true main event. I guess this one would be because it's at middleweight. But Jermall Charlo, 30-0, going up against Sergiy Derevyanchenko, 13-2, and his resume makes him look like he's a prospect. He's not. That 13-2 record, you usually see that, you think prospect, right? No. This dude's a contender. He's a top 5 middleweight. This is, of course, for Charlo's WBC middleweight title, which I would say is paper thin. So the title on the line in this fight, kind of papery, right? It's not as solid because I think he won an interim title against a B-level opponent, and then he got elevated. So whatever. The title really don't mean shit in this fight. It's still a good quality fight between 2 top 5 middleweights. Jermall has a decent resume at 154, but at 160, it's dog shit. He has fought Jorge Highland, Hugo Centeno, Matvey Korobov, Brandon Adams, and Dennis Hogan. And I want to say it was like Dennis Hogan or Brandon Adams for that interim WBC title. I can't remember exactly. Maybe it was Korobov, who a lot of people felt he lost to. I felt he eked it out against Korobov. But this fight truly is the proving ground for him. This is shit or get off the pot for Jermall Charlo. As I mentioned just a minute ago, I think if Jermell, even though he has a loss on his record, has the better resume of the two Charlo brothers, it's time for Jermall to step up. It really, truly is. And for Sergiy Derevyanchenko, he's got a very good resume. His last 3 fights, Daniel Jacobs, Jack Kolke, Gennady Golovkin. If you look at those 3 fights, though, and here's the X factor and the big question for this matchup. Dude, that was 36 rounds of hell. Distance fights, grueling fights. Jacobs, he got dropped. Kolke, he ate plenty of leather. He won that fight, but he ate plenty of leather in the process. And he was dropped and really, quite frankly, beat up by Gennady Golovkin. Look at his face after that Golovkin fight. It was bad for over a week. Golovkin, yeah, he looked vulnerable in that fight, but he really put a whooping on Derevyanchenko, and we just don't know how he's going to look after 36 straight rounds, back to back to back, distance, grueling fights where he took, you know what, I couldn't find punch numbers for the Kolke fight because I was going to give you guys like the number of punches he's taken in those 3 fights, but rest assured, it's well over 500. It's well over 500 punches. So he was competitive in all 3 of those fights, but technically 1 and 2 on the cards. Now, for what it's worth, I thought Jacobs beat Derevyanchenko. I know a lot of people thought Sergiy won that fight. I thought Jacobs edged it. I thought Golovkin edged it. I thought I was cool with the scorecards for Sergiy in both the Jacobs fight and the Golovkin fight. He was close, but just not enough to win those fights, especially with the knockdowns. But he was super competitive. Let's see. Let's compare numbers a little bit. And this is a big one, too, that no one's talking about, although Stephen Breadman Edwards was on the show and he talked about this. Jermall Charlo is 6 feet tall, 73-inch reach. Sergiy Derevyanchenko is 5'9". They list him at 5'9". He's really 5'8". 67-inch reach. So Jermall is 4 inches taller, has 6-inch longer reach. He's a much bigger, longer guy, and that's going to play a factor in this fight. Also, Charlo is 30 years old, really hitting his physical prime. Derevyanchenko's 34, but he's an old 34. I just talked about those 36 rounds of hell he's been through his last 3 fights, but also he had a long amateur career. He was in the 2008 Olympics. People hear he's only got 15 pro fights. How the hell could he have been in the 2008 Olympics? You would think 2012, even maybe 2016 games. No, this dude was in the 2008 Olympics, and then he fought in the World Series of Boxing for 4 seasons, 4 years. That's where he was before he ended up going pro. So he has an extensive amateur career, and that's why he's such a good fighter. But he also, man, those World Series of Boxing fights, they should count towards your pro record, in my opinion, because you're training for them just like the pros. And, all that takes a toll. So Charlo being the size he is, I get it that Derevyanchenko's much more experienced, fought the much better opposition, probably a better skilled fighter than Charlo. But Charlo's more athletic, taller, longer, stronger, younger, fresher, more explosive. And I'm telling you right now, guys, this is not going to be a popular opinion because a lot of people are picking Derevyanchenko, and I might look stupid. It wouldn't be the first time. It won't be the last. But I like Jermall Charlo by late TKO in this fight. I could see maybe Derevyanchenko's corner throwing in the towel. I could see the ref stopping it. I could see a possible cut causing a late stoppage or something like that. But I just see Charlo winning by late TKO in this fight. And with Charlo Rosario, I think that Rosario has to get off to a good start, a quick start. And Jermell is usually a late starter. So I could see Rosario winning the early rounds. But I see Charlo making adjustments in the mid-rounds, coming on late and pulling it out down the stretch. And either winning fairly decisively on the scorecards or possibly scoring a late stoppage himself because he could get Rosario to reach and he could land a counter uppercut, similar to what we saw Ennis do against Abreu last Saturday. Similar to what he was able to do to J-Rock a few years back. Land that counter uppercut. I think a shot like that could open up in the later rounds. All Jermell Charlo has to do, in my opinion, is survive the early rounds with Jeison Rosario, make adjustments in the middle of rounds, and he could, I'm not going to say coast, but he could take over late in this fight. So that's how I see it. I see Charlo winning either 116-112 on the scorecards over Rosario, or scoring a possible late TKO, dropping Rosario once or twice with like a explosive counter punch he doesn't see coming. And Charlo Derevyanchenko, I actually think that this will be very competitive early on, but I just think Charlo's size and explosiveness will take over in the middle rounds, and I like Charlo, Jermall Charlo, to score a late knockout win over Sergiy Derevyanchenko. So that's how I see it, guys. And overall, I think that's a great freaking card, man. I think that is a great freaking card, and I highly recommend checking it out. That's it, man. Wow. What a preview today. We had so much to preview. So it's exciting to have this much to talk about for a weekend of boxing. I hope what we see in the ring lives up to the hype, and I hope that on next week's show, we got all kinds of stuff to review. A lot of good action to review and talk about. I think that'll be fun, man. All right, guys, we'll do it again next week. I'll see you at the fights.